Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the next video in my pump series now that I'm going to be getting an insulin pump. And yeah, today's video is going to be all about the process of getting an insulin pump in England. I'm going to talk through the NHS slash NICE guidance and like the official rules and regulations around that, and then I'm also going to talk about my personal experience and how I went from wanting a pump to finally getting my appointment. That whole process for me did take 13 months, so do be prepared to have to wait around a fair bit. But also, as a little disclaimer to that, my experience did happen firstly during a global pandemic, and secondly when I was moving cities and therefore moving diabetes clinics, so that clearly did put a bit of a halt on the process. First, I'll just discuss the NHS and NICE guidance, and all of this information is available on the JDRF website. Their website is actually really helpful for anything diabetes and tech, but yeah, there's a lot of information about different pumps, how to get the pump, etc. So yeah, that will be linked down below, but I'll just talk you through it now. So firstly, to get an insulin pump, you need to talk to your diabetes team. An insulin pump can only be recommended for funding for you from a specialist doctor in diabetes care, and specifically a doctor with a specialist interest in pump technology, so basically like your clinic's pump specialist. So you can't get a pump from your GP. If you currently don't see a diabetes clinic, you will need to ask your GP to refer you to a diabetes specialist, and specifically to a diabetes clinic where there is a pump clinic available in order to get your pump. So in order to make the case to your diabetes team, you need to prove your commitment to good diabetes control. So this involves adhering to multiple daily injections currently and doing 4 or more injections per day, testing blood glucose 4 or more times per day, counting carbohydrates and adjusting mealtime, insulin doses, adjusting insulin for things like illness and stress, and also taking and reviewing diabetes personal care logs. So those are the things you need to be doing just to even broach the conversation with your diabetes team to prove that you are committed to your diabetes care and that a pump is just the next step in your committed diabetes journey. Then if you are able to have that conversation with your consultant, you together then need to decide if you fit any of the NICE criteria. So these are if you are under 12 years old and doing multiple daily injections is simply impractical. One of the good things about being a child with diabetes is that most diabetes technology is a lot more readily available to you. I need to slow down my speech. The next criteria is that if you are over 12 years old, if you are having severe recurrent hypos or hypos without any warning signs which are causing a negative impact on your quality of life, or on the flip side, if your HbA1c is above 8.5% and you cannot get it down despite your best efforts, including, for some reason it says including the use of a basal insulin, as if people are running around here not using a basal insulin. So if you meet any of these criteria from NICE and your diabetes team recommends you for pump therapy funding, you have a legal right to funding of a pump on the NHS. If you do not meet these criteria, but you meet some of the criteria set out by the Association of British Clinical Diabetologists, which I didn't know was a thing, if you meet any of their recommendations, you can potentially get funding for a pump, but your clinic will have to make a strong case for you. And these recommendations are having a pump during pregnancy, if you're suffering from acute pain from diabetic neuropathy and symptoms do not improve despite usual treatment methods, if you have hypo unawareness, if you have extreme insulin sensitivity, if you have needle phobia, if you have severe insulin resistance with need for large quantities of insulin, or if you have certain lifestyle factors that diabetes is affecting. So for example, a pathological fear of hypoglycemia, a need for an excessive number of insulin injections in order to maintain good control. If you have marked dawn phenomenon, so that is where your blood sugars rise sharply towards the early hours of the morning, and you can't obviously be waking up every day to inject for that. If you do things like shift work, or you're constantly going across different time zones, or if you have impaired exercise performance or an abnormally high number of sick days due to your diabetes, or for children equally, if you have poor school performance which can be linked to your diabetes, or again and more than average number of sick days. So if you meet these criteria, your consultant can agree that you meet the need for an insulin pump. And then in order to get the funding, you also then need to prove that you have the skills and commitment necessary to use this technology to your advantage. So to prove this kind of commitment and these skills, you may then have to take further training outside of training just for the pump, but training related to diabetes or carb counting. So for example, a lot of clinics have as a prerequisite that you have to take a DAPHNE course or a dosage adjustment for normal eating course, which is kind of like a very advanced carb counting course, and it obviously says it on the tin, adjusting your insulin dose for various situations and various foods. This is a 5-day course, so at my old clinic it was running either every Monday night for 5 weeks, or you could just do the whole week, do it 5 days. But that course is a prerequisite for certain clinics. That course, that process can be where there are some halts in the journey, because depending on available funding and staff resources, courses may not run so regularly, and that can often be where people kind of hit a roadblock with their journey to getting a pump, because they have to take that course, and that can take a while. Now, after all of this has been fulfilled, if you do meet the NICE criteria and your GP has recommended you for insulin pump therapy, legally funding cannot be refused. And if you found yourself in this situation where your clinic has recommended you and they have written to your local commissioners and funding is denied, you can get in touch with JDRF and they will advocate on your behalf, because if your diabetes specialist clinic has recommended you and you fit those criteria, that is a legal obligation for that funding to be provided to you. So yeah, that, and then obviously from there you get the funding, they set up the training, they set up the appointment, you get your pump. So that's officially how it is supposed to go. So now I thought I would just take you through my story of how I got my insulin pump. Like I said, it was a 13-month journey, and it's going to end, well, or begin, however you look at it, on the last Monday of July, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, it all started at the very beginning of July last year, so 2020. After I came to the decision that I wanted to get an insulin pump, I phoned up my diabetes team. This was back when I was still living at home with my dad, and this was the diabetes team I'd had for 10 plus years. So I phoned them up and they said that I would definitely be probably eligible for a pump, and I have met the criteria that basically, for me, in order to keep good control, I have to do a very excessive number of injections. I also have problems with fluctuating insulin sensitivity before and after my period. I explained all of this in a whole other video about why I wanted the pump. But yeah, the criteria that I hit were that it was severely affecting my quality of life with these insulin sensitivity fluctuations and the sheer amount of injections I was doing. So they actually said to me a while ago, maybe you want to get a pump. I said no. And again, in that other video where I explained why I eventually wanted a pump, I explained why I also didn't want a pump for a long time. But yeah, eventually I came round, so I phoned them up and I was like, yeah, I've thought about it, I really want to go for a pump. I also explained that I was going to be moving to London sometime in the near future, but I didn't know when, because at that point I did not have a job. And so because of that, it became a bit tricky, because my old clinic said, you've been diabetic for 16 years, we have done lots of carb counting and things with you, we know you have very good control and you're very aware of your diabetes. We would not require you to do a DAPHNE course, we would approve you without it because you've had sufficient education throughout your diabetes life. But they said, however, if we approve you for a pump, say, and you get it in August and then you move in September, which is when I thought I might move, then the new place might say, you've barely been on your pump for any amount of time, you haven't done a DAPHNE course, we require you to do a DAPHNE course, and then I'd have to come off of the pump, do the course, and then go back on the pump. So we decided I would wait, because at that time during the pandemic, my old clinic were not running DAPHNE courses. So they did say, if you do want to do a course with us, we can get it done. If you're still living here, we can then get the pump and then you'll be automatically approved when you move. If not when you move, at least then you will have done the DAPHNE course, and they can move straight forward with that process. But yeah, at that point, DAPHNE courses weren't being run because of the pandemic. There simply were not enough staff to put those on. So I then went on the wait list for a DAPHNE course, and that was kind of it. I then moved in the very end of September. The week after I moved, I get an email from my old diabetes clinic saying, yay, we're running DAPHNE courses again, feel free to sign up. But at this point I'd already moved, signed up to my new GP, and couldn't do the DAPHNE course at my old clinic. So when I signed up to my new GP, it then took me 2 months to get my first diabetes appointment, which was a bit of annoying, quite annoying, because it took like 3 weeks from signing up to the GP to have an appointment with my GP. They then had to refer me to my clinic, and then it took about 5 weeks to get an appointment. So then at my first appointment with my new clinic, I say, look, I've been really looking into getting an insulin pump with my old clinic. I really want to go for it. How do I go about it here? So at that point, the diabetes nurse who I was speaking to asked me why I want the insulin pump. I explained all of the reasons why I want one. I was also having a lot of hypos at the time. Like, I had weeks where I'd have 15 hypos, and she said, yep, definitely sounds like you should be someone on an insulin pump. I will have to get you in contact with the pump specialist here. So then you have to wait for another appointment to speak to the pump specialist. I had that appointment about 3 weeks later. She then again asked me my motivations for a pump, agreed that I would benefit from one, and she, at that stage, all of this as well during the pandemic, was done via phone call. I haven't actually met my new diabetes team in person yet. On the phone, she explained to me the different pumps available, explained their pros and cons, asked me which one I think I might want, and told me to start researching and thinking about it. And I am doing a video all about how to choose which insulin pump you want, and the process I went through to come to that conclusion. I don't know if that video will be out before or after this, but either way, I'll link it when it's available. She then informed me that at that clinic, in order to get an insulin pump, you have to have approval from 2 different members of the diabetes staff, so the pump specialist plus one other consultant. So she said, I will get another appointment set up for you for them to then okay it, and we can meet from there. She also mentioned at that point they weren't yet doing new pump starters because of the pandemic. They didn't have the staff to run new pump clinics. So she was like, it might be a little while, hopefully soon, maybe in May. So okay, great, I'll wait for this new appointment. I then have a diabetes clinic appointment, again on the phone, sometime towards the end of January, like the 20th of January, around then. And I said, it was just like a normal appointment, and I was thinking it was going to be for the pump. So I said, oh, thanks for the appointment. I was just checking, has there been any progress in my pump application? And she said, oh, this was just a regular appointment. I'm not sure where your pump progress is at. Let me check the relevant team members with you, and I'll let you know. So okay, great. Never heard anything again, and then suddenly I get another clinic appointment about 6 weeks later, and obviously normally I don't have clinic appointments that soon. So on the phone I was like, oh hi, is this the appointment for my pump approval? And it was the same woman who phoned me the time before, and she was like, oh, I've just got a note in here to do a phone consultation with you. The pump isn't me, the pump is with this other nurse who I'm not going to name them, this other pump specialist, what she said. And I said, oh, the other pump specialist has approved me. She said I'm just waiting for my second approval, so I thought that might be you going to do this for me. And she was like, oh no, let me check in with this nurse and see what's going on. So okay, cool, we have the phone call appointment. Then 6 weeks go by. By this point we're in about beginning of April, and I still hear nothing. So then I phone the clinic and I say, look, I've been waiting for a second appointment to get my pump approval for a while. I spoke to this nurse and this nurse, and I'm not sure what's going on. Please could you fill me in? And she was like, this was obviously the receptionist. So she then gets the pump specialist nurse, who had given me all the information, to phone me a week later, and she's like, oh hi, I just got a note to give you a ring. I explained that I've been waiting for the second approval from the second person because she's also waiting and doesn't know why she hasn't heard about my pump case. And I explained who I spoke to, and she was like, oh, that second nurse was supposed to be doing your second pump approval. She's new on the team. I think she's got confused about how the pump process works. So let me get in touch with her and we'll sort it out. So then they don't phone me again, and they decide between them that they both would like to approve me for the pump, and they then have to take my case to the hospital board, which they do once every week. I think it was on a Friday. And then I get an email saying, we're going to take your case to the board this Friday. Also, because you do an HbA1c, just so we know where you're at, because we haven't had one since you've been here, because for some reason the HbA1c I did when I joined my new GP was not then communicated to my diabetes team and was lost. You can see the whole process is quite frustrating. So then I book into an HbA1c with my GP, ask them to send it to my diabetes clinic, and about a month goes by. So by this point we're like end of May, maybe even beginning of June, and I haven't heard either way. Oh, I should also mention that when I spoke to the pump specialist again to clarify what was going on, when she told me the other nurse had been a bit confused, she asked me which pump I wanted to go for. I told her which pump I wanted, and she said, because we just need to know so that then if you do get approved by the board, we can get the pump ready for you. So I told her then which pump I wanted. Then we get to, end of May, beginning of June. Haven't heard, it's been about a month since I did my HbA1c, maybe 3 weeks. So I email, luckily I have the email by now of the pump specialist, because she asked me to get my HbA1c and was communicating with me that way. Emailed her, said, just wondering if there's any updates on my pump case, also any updates on the HbA1c, because my GP will not let me see it without it being told to me by a consultant, as if after 16 years of diabetes, I don't know what my HbA1c means or how to interpret it. But anyway, that's beside the point. So then the pump specialist emails me back. I'm so sorry, I thought your GP would have given you your HbA1c number. So it's 5.5, really amazing. And then she asked, because your control is so good, your HbA1c is non-diabetic level, do you still want to go ahead with the pump? Because it's unlikely that you will get much more management benefits from, or a tighter HbA1c from using the pump. But she said, however, I understand there are multiple reasons why people want the pump, i.e. lifestyle reasons, and fewer blood sugar fluctuations, fewer hypos, things like that. And I was like, yes, I would love, and she also asked me, do you still want the same pump? I was like, yes, I would love to still go ahead with the pump, please, and still want the same pump. And she said, okay, great, our administrator at the hospital will be in touch soon to tell you when your appointment will be. We are doing pump clinics now, they have started post-pandemic, and hopefully it should be soon. So this was end of May, beginning of June. We then get to the 22nd of June, so at this point it's been quite a while. A lot of backwards and forwards, a lot of confusion, and I get a phone call from, I think, like a reception staff or the administrator from the hospital, saying that they had a note to call me, and I was like, okay, is it about my pump? And they were like, oh, it might be, let me have a look at my system and see what's happening there. And she's like, oh, I can see you've been approved from a pump, there's a note here to get an appointment sorted for you. And I was like, yes, I've been waiting for that for so long. So then she slotted me into the next available appointment, which is the 26th, 29th, the last Monday of July. And she was like, that's all booked in for you, we've got the pump down that you want to get, here's the date and time, here's how to get here, blah blah blah. So at this point, as you can imagine, finally I've got my date, because I kept waiting, like, am I going to be approved by the first person? Am I going to be approved by the second person? Is the board going to approve me? When are they going to start opening the clinics again? When am I going to get my appointment time? And I had to keep constantly going back. And I do understand, obviously, at the moment there is a lot going on in hospitals. I can't imagine how difficult it is to be working in a hospital right now, and I have complete sympathy and empathy for that. However, on my end also, not having a pump has been very tricky. I've had to dedicate my life pretty much to managing my diabetes well because of my insulin sensitivity fluctuations, and so I was just getting increasingly impatient wanting the pump. So I am so relieved that I have got my appointment date now, and I can't even tell you how excited I am. Yeah, that was my experience. I hope I haven't put you off if you are trying to get a pump by the sheer lack of organisation and amount of time that it takes to get a pump. But as long as you have one key contact, that's all I can say. If you have one key contact on your pump case, everything should hopefully be pushed along. Like I said, my pump specialist, she was pushing as hard as she could, and it was just other members of the team that weren't quite up to speed. So as long as you have that one person who knows what they're doing, and is ready to advocate for you, it shouldn't be too hard. And especially now the world is slowly getting a bit more back to normal, processes are getting quicker, and also if you don't move mid pump process, that kind of helps. But obviously it also does depend on where you live, what kind of relationship you have with your diabetes team, and what they know about your diabetes management, and where your diabetes management is currently. Obviously if you don't fit the criteria or the recommended like extra criteria, it is going to be tricky, and I am so grateful that I do have the opportunity to get a pump, because I know it's going to make such a difference for my life. But yeah, that is it. Let me know if you have any questions about the pump process, and I will answer them down below. But yeah, that is it for this one. There are lots of pump videos coming soon, as I said in my last pump video. Yeah, make sure you're subscribed if you want to see those. But that is it for this one. Have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye!